Alright, Kevin here with MyATVs.com. We're going to show you all how to get your scooter started and running after assembly. It'll be the same for all the scooters. This is a TaoTao 50CY 50A that we're doing. We went ahead and installed the battery. Just want to make sure you put your hot lines to your hot and your negative to your negative. Once you have that on, you just want to turn the ignition on. Check your battery, check your lights first. So, scooter lights, headlights don't work unless the scooter's running, so we'll check those after we start it. But you just want to check your blinkers, turn it to the left, make sure the left ones are working, front and rear. Right, make sure the right one's working, front and rear. Make sure your horn's working. Make sure your brake light's working. All those are working, so those are all operating correctly. I'm going to turn it off. We're going to put some fuel in it. First thing you want to put in is your StarTron. Please don't forget to put this stuff in your scooters or four-wheelers, whatever you're using. It'll help the ethanol. It'll knock the ethanol out of the gas, and that ethanol will gum up these carburetors on anything with a small carburetor on it, not just the Chinese stuff. So you just take and put a little cap full. Drop that in there. Go ahead and just fill your tank up. We put premium fuel in ours. I got it mostly filled up. I'm just topping it off so we can. Now we're going to start the scooter. Make sure you have the key in the on position. Now this first time it's going to crank for a while before it starts because it has to get that fuel through those lines. So you just hold a brake in. Start button. That's what it should sound like. What that's doing is just pumping the fuel through the lines. You can twist the throttle a couple of times to help get that fuel down through the lines. You can hear it getting a little bit closer because that fuel, like I said, is going through the lines. Getting there. Don't want to rev on it too hard while it's first starting. You want that fuel to get all the way through the lines. Alright, now that we have that going, it's running. I'll go ahead and shut it off. Now that the fuel's through the lines, it should start right up for you. No problem. It's just that first time you're starting these scooters, you do have to crank on a little bit to get that fuel through the lines. Then you want to take it for a quick little test drive in a parking lot in your neighborhood. You want to check your brakes. Just use your back brake, your front brake. Test how those are working. The front brakes are usually always set. The back brakes, sometimes you have to adjust those a little bit. It's just an adjustment on the back here. You want to zoom down here, Dave. It's this little nut on the back. If you tighten that bolt down, you can finger tighten it. That'll tighten the brakes up. If you loosen it, it'll soften the brakes a little bit. So, we've got all that done on the scooter. What we recommend is take this thing out, drive it for a little bit, check your brakes, maybe put 10 to 15 miles on it, and then what you need to do is change the oil in it. Alright, Kevin here with MyATVs.com. Today we're going to show you how to do an oil change on your scooter. If this is your first oil change, you want to just make sure that you check your gear oil as well. We've already gone ahead and put about 10-15 miles on this scooter. We've checked the brakes, made sure everything is running correctly on it. Now we're going to do our first oil change on it. It's important to get this oil change done before you hit 15-20 miles. Get that shipping oil out of here. So that's the first step we're going to do. You need to make sure that you have a good synthetic oil. We use AMS oil, but castor oil, there's a bunch of good oils out there. 10W40, and make sure it's a full synthetic. And then on the back of your bottle of oil, you can check, make sure it's wet clutch compatible. It'll last a lot longer in these scooters and help them run a lot better. So now we're going to go ahead and get started on the oil change. So we're going to go ahead and change our oil on our scooter. We've got it up on a center stand. If you look back on the right side of the scooter, it's right behind the center kickstand. There's a bolt right here, nut hanging down, and it's got a whole washer. So the plate on it is about the size of a 50-cent piece. That whole thing's going to come down. We put our pan underneath. Go ahead and loosen this up. Now if you notice when this thing dropped, I had a spring that came out, my nut, and your filter. This is all the oil filter is on these things. It's a little metal wire mesh looks like a thimble, yeah. Looks like a thimble. All you have to do is you can just clean that off, dry it up, make sure it's not cracked or anything like that. This should last you several oil changes. So I'm going to let that oil drain out. Alright, now we're going to go ahead, now the oil's drained, we're going to go ahead and reinstall our plug. You just take your nut with the bottom plate on it. You're going to take your screw, or your spring, make sure that the small end of the spring is tightly coiled, goes down into this cap, and then take your thimble and put that down in the spring like this. So this whole thing is just going to slide out that same hole we took it out of. Get your screw started. With a finger tighten it. And I am going to put just a little bit of a turn on this thing. You don't want to have to put a lot of pressure over tightening this thing. Just snug it up. Don't over tighten. Alright, now the plug's back in. We'll go ahead and remove our pan. Take our cap off the oil reserve right here. On the scooters, you're going to put somewhere between 3/4 and a quart of oil in them. Go ahead and install the oil. We'll double check it with our dipstick. This now oil that I just put in there is cold, so you're going to check it at a cold level. When it's at a cold level, you're going to want it somewhere down in here on your dipstick. So like I said, about 3/4 of a quart of oil. Put our cap on there and our oil change is done. Alright, now we're on the left rear side of the scooter. We're going to check our gear oil. Now this scooter is new, so we're not going to change it, but we are going to show you how to go ahead and change the gear oil on your scooter. If you notice, there's 2 screws right here. Hopefully you can see there's no washer on this screw. There's a washer on this screw above it. It's always the screw with a washer on it. That's going to be our where we fill it at and where we check it at. So in order to check it, I'm just going to back it out just a little bit and make sure that I have oil in there. You can see the washer now. I can already start to see a little bit of oil in there. Okay. It's really clean oil. You can't really see it, but there is oil on the end of this. And there's just a little small drop, so that's good. It's got the oil in it. We're fine. Now if I was going to change this oil, I would leave this bolt out, and then right below it, again, there's 2 bolts down here. It's the one with the washer on it. So I'm just going to remove this just like I would my oil. Let that drain out. Reinsert this bolt. Take this one out and fill it here. You just want to get some kind of little, we use like the surgical bottles to fill these up with. Just something you can point in there and squeeze it out and put your oil in there. But that's where you're going to check and look for your gear oil out on your scooter. Now we've got your oil change done. We've checked the gear oil on it, and the scooter's ready to ride. Just try to take it easy on the scooter for the first 300 miles. Let it get broken in good. Go through the different speeds on your scooter. Don't hold it wide open the whole time you have it. It will break in a little bit easier if you go through the speeds. It'll actually get a little bit quicker for you. Change that gear oil out again. Change your oil out again at 500 miles. I would change the gear oil at 1500 miles. Once that first 500 mile service is done on it, which is just changing the oil, just go ahead and change your oil every 1500 miles. You'll get a lot of life out of your scooter and have a great time.